Welcome, Manu Reynaud. It's awesome that you're joining me today. Thank you. Especially because you were kind of in that in-between point of when I was a dancer for Footnote and then I left, and then you were a dancer. And then in your last year, I rejoined as artistic liaison. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's pretty special. So, Manu, you were a dancer in Footnote from 2011 to 2015. Did a rough calculation. You were in approximately 25 different pieces of choreography over those.
Wow.
How does that make you feel?
Um, yeah, I don't think I'd ever thought to clarify how many different works we managed to create in even in that short space of time. But yeah, hearing that number, I'm both surprised and not surprised.
Yeah.
Given the format of Footnote, certainly when I first joined the company, it makes me feel pretty proud as well to have been contributing to and partaking in so many different works, so many different cultural investigations and choreographies and whatnot. Yeah, it's pretty special. I think I'd struggle to name all 25 of them for sure, but yeah.
I think you were in that sweet spot in the company where we were making short works to be part of the Made in New Zealand season. But then there was also you got to get your hands on some really meaty full-length works as well. Do you have any particular favorite work or like a memorable piece that really sort of sticks with you?
Works that I often come back to thinking about, definitely Colt, choreographed by Sarah Foster Sproul, stands out as a pretty unique experience that we went through. The other big one would be Lisa Denson, We Have Been There. Those two works stand out pretty strongly for me in terms of process and product as well. Yeah.
If you think about your very first contact with Footnote, do you remember the first show you ever saw or the first point of contact with the company?
I only discovered much later down the line that I'd had connections to Footnote, basically as a baby even. My grandmother and Deirdre were actually acquaintances through the Royal Academy of Dance as both being examiners and my grandmother having set up the foundations of what Dance North would become. I believe Footnote came over to Townsville and did a co-presentation with Dance North at the time, while Dance North was still in its infancy. Towards the end of my time at Footnote, we actually found some documentation that my dad had done a lighting design for Footnote while they were in Townsville doing this thing. And it was kind of like my dad hadn't even recalled doing these sorts of things. But yeah, there's a bit of a long history in essence, even if it was not really forefront in anybody's mind at the time. Yeah.
You've been involved in the industry and even to where you are now, you're still in the theatre. How did being in the company set you up for where you are now and what you're doing now?
There are many ways, and I think certainly in particular, like being a part of Footnote at that point in time from 2011 to 15, there were some quite major changes to the company, specifically to the company structure in the backgrounds. Deirdre of wanting to step back, so we were ready for a bit of a process of transition. There was, I think, a sense for me that in that transition period, I kind of learnt a lot on the job of like the caretaking of my co-dancers and kind of starting to like pull back a little bit from the day to day and understanding how the whole of the company, I guess, kind of operates and what it kind of needed in order to fulfill its mission at that point in time, which I think has absolutely served me in multiple different ways, like moving into rehearsal directing and yeah, starting to think outside of what do I need and thinking more about what do we as a company, like what do my dancers around me need, and then as I shifted into the more technical side of theatre, so those skills still applied to me in that respect. And then climbing that kind of world into some of what I do now as a production manager for various companies, entities, and projects. Yeah, like so much of my experience as a performer, as somebody who is part of the company, really does inform, especially like when we hit the theatre, when we get to production week.
What was the hardest show you ever performed?
I guess there's a couple of categories of hard. Halapolloi was not hard at all. So that was the first big work that I worked on with Footnote. That was quite I think there was a bit of a jarring hardness in terms of coming to the company at that point and discovering that we were going to be running around in morph suits for an hour. Like, what the hell is this? This isn't contemporary dance, blah, 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 blah. But through the process, completely understood and I think gained a much deeper appreciation for what dance could be. Going back to Cult, that felt like a really easy process, but the show itself was physically demanding. Distinctly remember in the final jumping section, which is we jumped for like 2 minutes non-solid chanting. I remember feeling my calves just lose all energy and like seizing up, but just jumping and keeping going. And the relentlessness of that was pretty, it's kind of special in a way. Yeah. Logistically, Beals was probably is up there in terms of its difficulty. Building a scaffolding tower poses its challenges, but also working with a choreographer who was not super familiar with the company necessarily. His way of working was very different. So there was a lot of adapting to our processes as company dancers to build that show. And also it was a collaboration with another company. And I'm pretty sure that was the first time that we'd really collaborated with another company as opposed to just bringing extra dancers in for a work.
What are your observations of the company now? Or what are your hopes for the future of the company?
It's really nice to see that the focus has drilled down a little bit more within the company. I really appreciated Deirdre's mindset that she wanted to get as much happening within the dance community as possible in terms of getting choreographers in, making new works, the platforms that she created in order for short works to be made and presented. But as you've reflected, that's 25 works in 3-4 years, which I think some companies would not understand how that's even possible. Again, I don't say that's a bad thing. It was just our experience at the time, but seeing how the company has kind of drilled down into trying to invest a lot more time and resource into longer works, bigger works, and not just bigger as in on stage bigger, but with bigger production elements and whatnot is really cool to see. During my time at the company, we didn't have heaps of opportunity to work on large scale shows that had lots of production elements in them. As one way of making the company structure work, I think that was one of Deirdre's kind of bottom lines is this needs to be able to tour in the back of a car and not in the back of a truck kind of thing. And that's absolutely a valid way of, yeah, everything in a suitcase. If the dancers can't fit it in their suitcases, it has to at least fit in my extra koru bag kind of thing. And that is an absolutely valid way of conducting. But I think it kind of reached its natural end through my time at the company. And again, I say it's really exciting to see how that's being drilled down. And seeing two of the larger works that have been made over the last couple of years come through here at Q with Modern God and The Impossible Has Already Happened. Yeah. Really beautiful to see those works come through to the space where I work and see how the company has grown in taking on those kinds of things. So that's really exciting. There is absolutely the potential for an awesome future for Footnote. I'm talking to you as you sit in the new studios on Cuba Street. I definitely feel like there's a cool and interesting future for Footnote. The works that you are presenting and producing versus some of the other companies, like there is space in the industry for all of these things to happen. As an aside, art needs to happen whether or not there's the space for it to be done, and I want to acknowledge that. But yeah, the space within the industry for those things to happen, I think Footnote are taking, taking big risks in that respect. And I really applaud you guys for doing that when it could be so easy to tick boxes, make people happy kind of thing, pushing what the presentation of dance could be. And yeah, taking risks. So it's really cool to see the company taking risks in terms of what they're presenting. And I think the messages that are getting out around the works that are being made is like important and vital. Like, yeah, it's really cool. Watch this space. Huh, that was one of the programs. Holy shit.